What if Judy Neutron is actually smarter than her son Jimmy, but just never got the chance to prove it? Across multiple episodes, we see hints that Judy is far more intelligent than she lets on. Maybe more than Jimmy himself. But after this video, you might start to wonder, was she always meant to be a stay-at-home mom? Or was there something else holding her back? There was one particular moment, one reveal, that changed everything about her character. But we'll get to that. On the surface, this 30-year-old mother to a genius and wife to a dimwit is a homemaker who typically plays the role of the responsible parent. Meanwhile, her husband Hugh is usually off tending to his duck collection or something. She's the one who wears the pants in their relationship, but with that being said, she does so with seemingly little complaints. She's almost like a Betty Crocker or a cartoon version of Martha Stewart, but with a very interesting twist and many more layers. She's got that 50s housewife vibe on lock with her perfectly styled brown hair, her dress, and her pearl necklace, among other accessories. However, just as often as she can be found in the kitchen preparing food in an apron, she can be found out in the garage fixing the car or doing other maintenance tasks around the house. Her skill set is seemingly very broad, and as a parent to a kid like Jimmy and a wife to a guy like Hugh, that skill set certainly comes in handy. With that being said, as a parent, she comes across as one that not only runs a tight ship, but also genuinely has a lot of care for her son. Over the years that this show aired, we would see her saving him on multiple occasions, on top of generally caring for him on a day-to-day basis like a stay-at-home mom does. However, what if I told you that Judy Neutron actually has a deep, dark secret? A hidden side of her that only rarely shines through. Just enough to make you wonder what led her to suppress it in the first place. Would you believe it? Over the course of 3 seasons, the signs had been there all along in plain sight, and as the dominoes fall, this dark theory would reveal something shocking, a disturbing trait in her parenting that's gone overlooked for decades. That's why today, on our nostalgic walk down memory lane, we're gonna deep dive into a few episodes of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius that will expose a few often unseen parts of Mrs. Neutron's personality and will lead us down a rabbit hole of unsettling, dark conclusions. Before we get into it, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. To set the stage, we're gonna go all the way back to Season 1. To the very first episode that would show us a glimpse of this hidden side of Judy. We are looking at none other than See Jimmy Run. This episode begins at the track at school during PE as the teacher is telling Jimmy's class that they're about to have a race. He proceeds to explain the rules to all of these kids.
If you trip, you will be trampled. If you stumble, you will be trampled. If you refuse to trample, you will be trampled. On your mark!
Carl struggles to run, but he ends up making it to Sheen and passing the baton before falling to the ground. From there, we see Sheen and Libby running the next leg of the race neck and neck, reaching their next partners at nearly the same exact time. They pass the batons to Cindy and Jimmy, who run while they talk smack to each other.
Hey Jimmy, you know the only thing worse than you losing this relay race?
What's that, Vortex?
Losing to a girl!
Quick! Trample him before he gets up!
You call that running? Race you to the lockers, Jimmy.
The PE teacher puts a last place ribbon on Jimmy, and we cut over to Jimmy's house where we see that he has a whole mess of last place ribbons on the fridge. His dad tells him not to feel bad, saying that he lost all sorts of races when he was a kid, and he turned out just fine, except for the scars left behind from all of the tramplings.
I think think what your father's trying to say, Jimmy, is that losing's not important as long as you try your best.
Look, this one's shaped like President Grover Cleveland in his second term.
Jimmy tells his parents that he's fed up with losing, so he's doing a little experiment. He explains that currently, under the table, he has a robot coating his shoes with a special mixture of thermal silicon and a special adaptable compound that he invented.
The resulting combination should create a propulsive yet frictionless environment around my sneakers that'll power me to victory.
But won't the combustion cycle become increasingly irregular due to the inhibiting effect of the silicon's thermal resistance?
Don't worry, Mom. It's just gonna be one quick experiment. But oh so satisfying.
The next day at school, we see the same exact race that we watched the day before taking place yet again. Libby and Sheen are running neck and neck just like before, and as they get closer to Cindy and Jimmy, Cindy starts talking smack to him again. However, he seems to not care very much, feeling extra cocky due to his unfair advantage. He even allows Cindy to get a pretty far head start before he starts running.
Now run at the wind. You're a cheetah. You're an eagle. Take it. Seriously, run. Jimmy, you're supposed to run now.
Come, well, got him last.
Jimmy runs and his legs move as if they were a blur. He catches up to Cindy and even has time to talk some smack to her before getting ahead to the finish line and stopping. He takes a breath and, before crossing the finish line, decides that he wants to make a quick stop for a purple flurp. We see Jimmy run all the way to the candy bar and back to the finish line before Cindy can even get close.
Come on, Vortex. You still have a chance to be a loser.
Oh, look! A 1957 Van de Graaff electrostatic generator!
What? What?
I win!
Everybody walks off, thankfully not trampling Jimmy this time, as his best friends Carl and Sheen approach him, talking about how awesome that was. They tell him that he was going so fast that he was invisible. Jimmy thinks to himself for a moment, realizing that could totally come in handy sometime, and just like that, we cut over to the park after school, where we see Miss Fowl sitting by herself and eating on a bench when a squirrel approaches her. Nearby, spying on her and plotting, however, is Jimmy.
Now to test how invisible I really am.
Well, who took my sandwich? Oh, so that's your game, is it? Well, mister, I'm too good for acorns. How'd you like a nice detention?
I am moving too fast to see. Imagine the possibilities. I could benefit all mankind. Or I could totally get back at Cindy. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
At school the next day, we see a bunch of the girls jumping rope when Jimmy plays a trick on Cindy, tripping her and wrapping her up in the jump rope, propelling her into the boys' bathroom where she runs into her crush, Nick.
Dude, you're not a dude.
Oh, wait, I can explain, Nick. See, I was jumping rope and the jump rope came alive and I just... oh...
Outside, we see Jimmy laughing to himself as he runs around at high speed, messing with everyone on the playground and contemplating all of the wild things that he's going to do now that he's practically invisible. A few seconds later, though, Jimmy starts to panic, realizing that something is wrong.
Can't stop! No! Mom was right! The combustion cycle is accelerating out of control! Can't get my shoes off! Must get...
Jimmy keeps running through the park, and we cut over to Carl and Sheen, who are in the same park, not too far from Jimmy. He runs past them, yelling for their help, but sadly, they can't see or hear him because he's going too fast. The two friends start to panic, however, as they can clearly tell that something weird is going on, but they're not quite sure what.
Don't be alarmed or anything, Carl, but I think we may be in the presence of a creature from the other side.
Of the playground?
No, I mean a spirit, a phantom, an apparition.
Oh, you mean
looking like a person that used to be a person and then they died and now they're a ghost!
As Jimmy continues running by them, he carves the words "Help Jimmy" into the ground in front of them, but this just leaves them even more confused and scared, thinking that the ghost has Jimmy. The two run away screaming, and Jimmy is left running around town uncontrollably. As he continues going, he ends up hatching a plan to spin around at a fast enough pace that he slips right out of his shoes. At that, we see Jimmy run back to the school and to the playground as he grabs onto the merry-go-round, using his insane speed to propel it as he hangs on for dear life.
I think it's working. I'm lifting out of my shoes. It is working!
Over at the front of the school, we see Cindy sitting on the front steps talking with Libby about how embarrassed she is about the whole situation with Nick earlier. Just then, Carl and Sheen run up to them, panicking and saying that they saw a ghost and that it has Jimmy. Cindy tells them that she doesn't care and that the ghost can keep him, but just then, with a scream and a loud splat, a purple blob lands directly in front of the group.
Hi guys, I'm back. And by the way, that wasn't a ghost. It was me. But once again, I've solved everything.
I thought Neutron was hard to look at before, but this is disgusting.
Yeah, Jimmy, you're totally gross. Yet somehow cool. But completely nasty. Yet strangely awesome.
Jimmy is super confused at first, but he looks down and realizes that his molecules have not reassimilated yet, and as a result, his current form is a gelatinous blob. Carl starts poking at him, and realizing that Jimmy's new form is really fun to poke, he invites the rest of the kids to partake with him.
Ah, Jimmy, you finally invented something we can all enjoy.
Hey, yeah! This is better than a video game. I can do this all day, and I think I will.
Pokey dokey, pokey pokey.
Now, this episode perfectly hits the bullseye in proving one huge point that needs to be understood from the get-go. Before I get into that though, we have to discuss something that's just so messed up about this episode. The fact that Jimmy lost this relay race and got forcibly trampled by the entire class. Like, let that sink in. This PE teacher straight up forced all of these kids to trample Jimmy, saying that if they didn't, then they themselves would be trampled. Part of me wonders what happens if all of the kids refuse to trample. Does he just trample all of them himself? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me based on how big of a piece of trash that this guy seems to be. It's kind of funny because this guy strikes me as the kind of PE teacher that got so mad and fed up with participation trophies that he started only giving ribbons to the kids in last place out of spite. I also can't help but wonder why Carl didn't get trampled, considering that he lost his leg of the race way worse than Jimmy did. And he ended up on the ground. Yet somehow Carl gets spared. Meanwhile, Jimmy doesn't. Regardless, this shouldn't be happening to any kids. I mean, if that happened to one of my kids, I'd be one pissed off dad. Fast forwarding from there though, when Jimmy is at home telling his parents about his merciless trampling, we see nothing but empathy from Hugh, as he himself recalls going through the same exact thing many times when he lost races at school as a kid. He's able to recognize how traumatic that is for Jimmy and how the scars that you get from a trampling like that can certainly last a lifetime. Meanwhile, Judy, on the other hand, had a rather indifferent reaction to the trampling, more so being focused on consoling him for his repeatedly losing and trying to provide some empathy towards his potentially bruised ego. During this moment though, there's a pretty huge revelation that would definitely change how we had seen Judy up to this point. It's pretty crazy actually, because Judy was in this episode for a measly 45 seconds. However, in that 45 seconds, it honestly felt like we got more background on her character than we had in any other episode up to this point. The big message that this one sent is that Jimmy certainly isn't the only genius in the Neutron household. As well as just being a genuinely great episode, this one showed us as viewers for the first time that Judy's intelligence is hidden but certainly undeniable. It's been established that she's nowhere near as helpless and dim-witted as her husband. However, before this, it was never really hinted at that she could potentially be a genius. What's interesting about this though, is that this episode didn't just hint at it. This one full-blown showcased her smarts for us in a very powerful way. We saw this clear as day when Jimmy is sitting at the table early in the morning with his dad, and he explains that he's having his shoes treated with the thermal silicone and the adaptable compound that he created. At this moment, she warns him of the potential side effects. However, he ignores her warning. She warned him, and she was right. But did she try to stop him from doing it anyway? Not really. The icing on the cake, though, was Jimmy and Hugh's reaction to what Judy said. They both looked at her like she had two heads. Likely because, just like us viewers, they may not have seen this side of her before. We've never really heard Judy say anything that scientific sounding, and clearly neither have Hugh and Jimmy. Furthermore, it's really fascinating to consider that this could explain where Jimmy gets his smarts from. Hugh, to be fair, is kind of a bumbling idiot in a lot of ways. It's clear that Jimmy doesn't get the smarts from him. It is enthralling to me, however, that Judy is kind of a closet genius. She doesn't really wear it on her sleeve. Now, this isn't the big reveal that completely changed how I looked at her, but it is an important part of the puzzle that leads us to a point where we can't help but pose the question: is she just secretly smart? Or is there a deeper reason as to why she suppresses her intelligence? In the next episode, we get a glimpse into how much she might be holding back and a further look at why. We're checking out none other than Maternotron Knows Best. As this episode starts out, we see Hugh sitting at the perfectly set table and reading a book about duck facts, while Jimmy sits across from him clicking away on a device that he's holding. Just then, Judy walks in talking about how busy of a day that it's been today.
I did the shopping, I reshingled the room.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's great, Mom.
Here are your dinners. A ham and macaroni choo-choo for Hugh with cauliflower chimney smoke. For Jimmy, scallopini pfeffernusse with mashed potatoes in the shape of Einstein's hair. And for me, a sandwich.
Right when Judy goes to dig into her dinner, she hears some commotion from elsewhere in the house, immediately noticing that it's Jimmy's experimental hydraulic cuckoo clock, which he hooked up to the downstairs toilet. She asks him to go fix it, but he puts it back on her, asking her to get it because he's too busy with what he's doing. She lets out a defeated sigh and turns around to fix it, just like she does everything else, as the boys continue to enjoy themselves.
Apparently, baby dogs follow the mama duck because her butt looks like a great big breadcrumb.
Goldbach is true. Every non-prime integer must be equidistant from two primes.
My arm's been sucked into the U-bend! My sandwich!
No thanks, Mom. I'm full.
Yeah. Well, off to my duck first aid class. Tonight we're doing mouth-to-beak resuscitation.
Judy stands there alone and understandably frustrated as she vents about her lack of help. Just then, though, she notices a newspaper nearby that just so happens to have an ad for a hot springs spa just for tense and underappreciated ladies. She thinks to herself for a moment, and next thing you know, we cut to the next morning.
Something's wrong. There's no juice in my hand, and I don't smell waffles with meticulously syrup-filled dimples.
And there's something wrong with my bowl full of cereal.
There's nothing in it, Dad.
That's it! This isn't a bowl full of cereal, it's just a bowl of milkless air.
Just then, Judy walks in with her suitcase as Jimmy asks if she's going on a trip. She passive-aggressively acts surprised that he asked about what she has going on, and she proceeds to explain that she's going away for a spa week to be pampered unmercifully.
Husey Doodles is confused.
I'm sick of being unappreciated and doing all the work around here. Here are the chores I do every week to keep this place up and running. You two are going to have to do every one of them while I'm gone. Goodbye!
The two look at each other, and it's not long before they start mutually celebrating that they get a whole week of no one telling them to change their clothes, or that they need to take a bath, or come have dinner.
Or say, Hugh, put down that duck and talk to me for once!
We're free men! Masters of our own destiny! We rule this house!
Well, once we finish the chores.
Oh, yeah. What's the first one?
From there, we see the two attempting to do chores, starting with cleaning the windows. As they stand upon the top of their ladders against the house, Hugh questions which order to approach the scrubbing, squeegeeing, and drying. As he asks questions, Jimmy ends up accidentally slipping off of his ladder, leading Hugh to think that the proper step one is plunging headfirst screaming.
If I'm such a genius, why are we doing this work ourselves?
Because your mother told us to?
She just wants it done. She doesn't care who or what does it.
Over in Jimmy's lab, we see him finishing up his latest invention, Maternotron, the robotic maternal unit whose directive is to protect and pamper. As Maternotron takes Goddard for a walk, freeing Jimmy to relax and eat chips, we cut over to Judy just now arriving at the spa, as she's already being waited on hand and foot the second she turns into the parking lot. As she looks forward to the pampering to come, back at home, the boys are on the couch having popcorn popped directly into their mouths as it makes a giant mess everywhere. Meanwhile, Maternotron is on the roof vacuuming the shingles. Some time passes and we fast forward to dinner, where Hugh is asking Maternotron how the week's worth of chores is going, and she's glad to report that the entire list was finished hours ago. With dinner already being served, Jimmy tells her to assume sleep mode until next mealtime. However, it doesn't work, as she says that a mother's work is never done.
Oh, right. Override maternal chip directives until further notice.
Don't use that tone of voice with me, young man. Now eat.
Bleeping leptons! I said water the law, not cook it. What is this stuff?
Soy protein, kelp, tilapia oil, and spinach for flavor.
Sugar Booger's dinners never smelled quite so, how do I put it? Disgusting.
This is the train, and your mouth is the tunnel.
Yeah, no thanks. See, my tunnel is temporarily closed for a bit.
Jimmy realizes that he may have accidentally set Maternotron's autonomy levels a little bit too high, and as a result, this robot really thinks that she's Judy. Things only get worse from there for them, as Maternotron says that after dinner is bath time. And at that, shortly after, we hear Hugh screaming from outside of the bathroom door. As that's happening, we cut back to the spa where Judy is getting ready for a massage and being served food, genuinely enjoying her vacation. However, she says that she feels like something's missing, as nearly everything there reminds her of Jimmy and Hugh. Speaking of which, we see the two of them sitting on the couch, traumatized and covered in red marks from being scrubbed by Maternotron. Jimmy says that he has an emergency override on Maternotron's remote control in his lab, but he needs Hugh to cover for him while he sneaks out there.
So, Jimmy's sitting right beside me and not leaving the room at all. How's it going?
Okay, Dad of mine, who's also remaining in the room with me. Right here.
Oh, where are you going?
Well, I left my homework in the lab.
Too many wires. You'll electrocute your eye out. Bedtime.
What? But it's only 7 o'clock.
March!
Up in his bedroom, he tries telling Maternotron that he isn't tired yet, but she says that she's just gonna have to rock him to sleep. She picks him up and shakes him insanely fast until the point that he's nearly about to lose his dinner. After that, we see Hugh sitting in bed rather uncomfortably next to Maternotron.
I have been neglectful to you as a wife.
You know, Really, it's okay.
No, it is not. Switching to wife mode. Take out the trash. We never talk anymore. Give me some ice cream. Let's watch a movie with lots of crying. I should never have given up my career. Rub my feet. My mother and wife's sense is tingling. Something's terribly wrong. I'm coming, boys!
Judy pedals the stationary bike that she's working out on at an inhuman speed until it straight up breaks off of its legs and she ends up riding it out of the spa. Back at home, we see Carl and Sheen approaching Jimmy, who's talking to them from his bedroom window. He begs them to go to his lab and get the remote for him as he tosses them his hairbrush so they can use his DNA to get into the lab. The two head towards the lab as Sheen uses Jimmy's hairbrush, but on the way, they're stopped by Maternotron.
To associate with my Jimmy, you must complete these qualification forms.
Father's maiden name?
Jimmy falls in the playground and breaks his leg. What do you do? Well, that's a stupid question. They don't even tell you which leg it is.
Inside the house, Hugh and Jimmy are playing it cool as they pretend that they're going to go out to the front yard and play catch together, with secret plans of making a run for it. On the way out, though, they're caught by Maternotron.
Where do you think you're going?
Outside?
Too dangerous. Outside is where the Civil War was held. I'm placing you both on
Lockdown.
protect, pamper, eat your nutrition, protect, pamper, eat your nutrition, protect, pamper, eat your nutrition, protect. Get away from my family, you ugly bucket of bolts!
Mom!
Sugar booger!
As Maternotron makes her way to attack, Judy asks her son what's going on. Jimmy explains that the robot basically thinks that it's her, and just like that, it gets a hold of Judy and ties her up, holding her captive with Jimmy and Hugh.
To think I stepped out for 2 measly days and you replaced me with some psycho robot with a hideous 1950s hairdo?
No psycho robot could replace you, Mom. There's no way I could program all your love, care, and amazing ability to forgive me into a chip.
Ow!
Although I think I captured rope tying pretty good. Maternotron, as your creator, I demand you let her go!
Don't raise your voice to your mother, young man. Nobody wags their finger at my boy.
Judy breaks through her restraints and runs as Jimmy tells her to go to his lab to get the remote. However, she stops, saying that she doesn't need his lab as long as she has her trusty utility closet. We see her pull out a few cleaning implements to fight, but all of them unfortunately end up breaking. That is, until Judy pulls out her 300 caliber molecular blasting ray. She blasts the robot and it slowly short circuits, eventually dying completely as both Jimmy and Hugh cheer for her.
Way to go, Mom! Nobody punishes Judy Neutron!
Oh, I wouldn't say that. Pick it up, boys. I've got 3 more days of spa coming.
This episode doesn't just reinforce everything that we've already uncovered about Judy's hidden genius, it takes things to the next level. This time, we see just how incredibly independent and competent that she is, especially in comparison to the heavy, unrealized codependence between Hugh and Jimmy. This is portrayed to us as viewers in a few different ways. One of the strongest points that conveyed that would be the way that Judy was able to save everyone and solve this situation without Jimmy's help and without the assistance of any of his inventions. As a matter of fact, she had this molecular blasting ray that very well could have been an invention of her own, which, might I point out, Jimmy was incredibly shocked to see that she had. Just like before, when she showed her high level of intelligence, he was blown away, suggesting that he has no idea that she's a genius as well. Another really thought-provoking aspect of this one would be how much it showed us that on top of being independent and a genius, she's not just book smart. Judy truly understands human behavior, including how to control Jimmy when she wants to and get him to appreciate her when he isn't. Judy likely knew when she left that something would end up happening and they would end up needing her, which in turn would increase their appreciation for her. The real question is, did she know a threatening situation like this would occur? Looking back at the last episode, she warned Jimmy about the shoes, but when he ignored her, she didn't step in. At the time, that could have just been hands-off parenting, but when situations like this keep happening, when she repeatedly lets Jimmy walk into disaster, you have to wonder, is there maybe a little more to it? Another really huge thing that we need to keep in mind that this episode put on full display is that though she is competent and clearly a genius, she's exhausted. Rightfully so. Judy straight up does everything for these two, except for the leisurely things that they actually enjoy doing. The cooking, the shopping, the house maintenance, even fixing their mistakes and cleaning up the messes that they cause with their antics. Judy's basically being a mom to two helpless children. Additionally, Jimmy may be a genius, but he's extremely helpless when it comes to people smarts and social etiquette. Meanwhile, Hugh lacks book smarts and social etiquette, leading her to pull the weight in nearly every aspect of their marriage. We see all of this perfectly evidenced by the scene where Jimmy walks into the kitchen in the morning and he's perplexed as to why there's no juice in his hand immediately. Meanwhile, his dad has been sitting at the table in front of an empty bowl, confused for who knows how long now. These two are just so incredibly inconsiderate. To be honest, it actually drove me nuts that once the chores are his responsibility, now all of a sudden Jimmy wants to invent something to help with them. But when they were all on his mom's shoulders, he didn't even think for a second about if he could do anything to alleviate her stress or reduce her workload. Hugh, on the other hand, could help with literally anything, but like we saw when he was doing chores with Jimmy, the guy is practically useless. I mean, he couldn't even figure out how to scrub the windows without jumping headfirst to the ground on purpose. I think the biggest thing that drove me nuts here, though, is that neither Hugh nor Jimmy have a thankful bone for Judy in their body. Even when she does finally get fed up with them treating her like garbage and she leaves, they don't even really see the error of their ways, how they've pushed her away, or how screwed they're gonna be without her. They just immediately start celebrating how she's not going to be around, policing them and taking care of them. The way that these two are towards Judy is just so disheartening, especially when we come to realize that all of this has pushed her to the point where she doesn't even put energy into taking care of herself because she's so exhausted after putting everyone else first always. On top of that though, their lack of appreciation is even more disappointing when you consider that in her absence, Jimmy just invented a robot that was a more extreme and hyperbolized version of Judy's own maternal instincts. I mean, seeing her doing everything for them, the way they ignore her, and how they even ate her dinner not realizing that she slaved over the oven to make them each their own warm gourmet meal, all of this makes one thing painfully clear. Judy is completely burnt out, and honestly, how could you blame her? She's incredible at what she does, constantly putting Hugh and Jimmy before herself, yet she doesn't even get a simple thank you for any of it. At a certain point, you have to wonder, does she even try to win anymore? At first glance, this might seem like the exhaustion of a tired mom, but after this next episode, and especially the massive game-changing revelation that comes along with it, you might start seeing Judy Neutron in a whole new light. We're looking at none other than, wilderness. This episode begins with Hugh dressed up in his old Acorn Lad's uniform while he talks about how amazing that the great outdoors is.
Fresh air, clean dirt, nothing to depend on but your own sweat and toil. Hey, honey, come on, put your back into it.
Okay, dear. All packed.
Thanks, Sugar Booger. Oh, this is gonna be the best camping trip ever.
Hugh calls out to Jimmy and his friends, telling them that it's time to head out. Carl, dreading the camping trip, asks why they have to come with again, and Jimmy says that if they don't, then he's going to have to publish these pictures that he has of them playing with dolls. Sheen argues that it was an action figure, meanwhile Carl admits his love for the pretty outfits. All the meanwhile, Hugh is completely dissecting Judy's packing job.
What is it? Insect repellent? A compass? Toilet paper? These frilly luxuries will just weigh us down.
Hugh, are you sure you know what you're doing?
Yeah, of course I do. Don't forget I was an acorn lad. I remember everything I've ever learned. You like the song that we used to sing? We are the acorn lads, something, something, the acorn lads.
Jimmy calls Goddard to join them on the trip, however, Hugh stops him, saying there is no technology allowed on this trip, as it's just going to be them versus nature. Hugh hops in the station wagon, and just like that, they are all off.
Alone at last. Come on, Goddard, let's break out the cookie dough and watch gladiator movies.
Hours away, we see Hugh pull the car off in front of a no trespassing sign that has bullet holes in it. He hops out saying that this is their spot, as Jimmy points out that it's not a campground. Hugh dismisses him, saying that campgrounds are for tenderfoots and that they're going to be staying out in the untamed wild. Carl begins to panic, saying that Hugh is scaring him, but Jimmy calms him down, saying that he's been working on a special invention that's going to make it all worth it. From there, we get a nice montage of Hugh and the boys walking through the woods in search of his old campsite.
Hey, wait a minute. This is the 4th time we've been through this bog. Dad, I think we're lost.
Lost, are we? Oh, no. This is my old secret campsite. Or close enough. It's got trees and rocks and stuff. Yeah, you boys set up camp. I go bring back fire. See you later. Bye-bye.
Okay, here's the plan. When he gets back, Carl, you hit him over the head with a coconut, and I'll go for his legs.
Jimmy says that all of this is completely unnecessary, and that they won't be roughing it thanks to his latest invention, the Neutron Camp in a Box. He presses the button on it and throws it in the air as it explodes, materializing into a whole plethora of luxuries for them to enjoy, including a holographic butler to wait on them hand and foot. As the boys enjoy their lush campsite, we cut over to Hugh, who is currently struggling to make fire as he bangs 2 turtle shells together.
Oh, it's no use. I tried everything. Rocks, moss, even this highly combustible dirt. I just can't get anything to spark. Maybe my backwoods skills aren't what they used to be.
Just then, Hugh stops as he hears what sounds like video game noises not too far off in the distance. Back over at the campsite, we see Sheen playing video games while Carl relaxes, enjoying some pork tartare, and Jimmy is explaining to the two of them the science behind how this holographic butler is able to make and serve them food.
Jimbo, what have you done?
Dad, you're back already. I can explain.
No need, son. I can see for myself. You did a great job setting up this campsite.
Oh, I did?
Well, a little flashy for my taste, but it looks like you got the old wilderness genes after all.
Just then, the holographic butler pops up next to Hugh, and when he questions it, Jimmy lies to him, saying that he's a park ranger and that he helped them set everything up. Unfortunately for Jimmy though, when Hugh pokes at the butler, he pretty quickly connects the dots that it's a hologram and that Jimmy brought some of his gadgets on the trip with him even though his dad said not to. Jimmy pleads with him, but Hugh says that all of this stuff has to go.
How do I turn all this stuff off?
You'd have to remove the power pack, sir, just under the soda bar.
Dad, wait, the reactor!
Of course, removing the power pack while the core is still active will lead to a catastrophic meltdown. In 5, 4, 3...
Run!
Everybody sprints away as quickly as they can, while the butler says goodbye, prepared for the imminent explosion. With the campground blown to smithereens, everyone panics, thinking that they're doomed.
Calm down, I know what you're all thinking. This is Jimmy's fault. But don't worry. I could still use my wilderness skills to get all of us home safely.
But, Dad, it's almost too dark to see the trail.
A true camper doesn't trust his eyes, Jimbo. He goes by pure animal instinct. This way, lads!
They all follow Hugh as he proceeds to taste feces on the trail, flip coins, and ask an eagle for direction. We finally get to the point that it's pitch dark out, and Hugh is playing eeny, meeny, miny, moe to decide which direction will get them back to the car. He finally accepts the fact that he's completely lost and that he has no idea what he's doing.
The truth is, I'm a rotten camper there. I said it. The other acorn lads used to dunk my head in the bug juice. I can't even make a stupid fire.
Oh, don't worry, Dad. We'll find a way out of this. I don't care if you're a mediocre camper. I still think you're a great dad.
Thanks, son. I needed to hear that.
So you couldn't even make a fire.
Just then, they all hear a growling sound, causing them to panic. As a pair of bright eyes appears behind them, they quickly turn around to find a cute little squirrel, standing right underneath a massive and angry brown bear. They all run in fear and the bear chases them. Eventually, they end up cornered against a large rock, and Hugh says that they have no choice but to make a final stand.
Who knew it would end like this? Trapped between these bright yellow rocks and these clear sparkly ones.
Yellow? Why, that's sulfur! And this is phosphorus! Dad, that's it! We can still save ourselves by making a fire from the natural elements around us!
Yeah, but Jimmy, I can't.
Jimmy tells his dad that he's the only one who can save them, as he tosses him the rocks and tells him that they'll distract the bear. Hugh stands there struggling with the rocks for a while as the bear chases the boys up the rock wall. At the last second before it grabs them, though, Hugh comes at the bear with a torch that he's successfully lit.
Behold, bear, I am man, the pointy tip of the food chain. Gaze upon my opposable thumbs and tremble.
Yeah, they hate it when you mention the thumbs.
As Hugh continues to talk like a buffoon, the bear smacks the torch out of his hand and prepares to attack. Thankfully, right before he can strike, Goddard flies down from above and lets out a massive scream, causing the bear to run away in fear. Just then, from a nearby ridge, we see Judy emerge with a flashlight, thankful that she finally found the boys. And this right here, this moment, this is what completely flipped my perspective on Judy.
Mom, how did you know to come save us?
Goddard detected the high levels of radiation from when your box exploded. Good thing I implanted a homing chip under your father's skin, or I never would have been able to find you.
Oh yeah, that darn thing still itches me.
After that, we cut back to Jimmy's house, where him, his parents, and his friends are camping out in the yard, enjoying the luxuries of the camp in a box. As the butler serves Hugh a drink and he turns on his massage chair, we see the episode come to an end. Now, in this episode, Judy may not have had much screen time, but in just a few moments, we learned an astonishing amount about her character. The shocking revelation that she implanted a homing chip under her husband's skin, allowing her to track his every move, is enough to shatter everything that we thought we knew about her. And as we follow this trail, piece by piece, it forces us to rethink everything that we've uncovered so far. This right here is an insane detail that really does make Mrs. Neutron seem incredibly calculated in her actions. It's one that can't help but lead us to wonder if she's had this level of control all along. What does that say about her role in the family? The fact that she was able to have this done tells us that she quietly has pretty much complete control over the household. Contemplating the events of this episode, especially the ending, leaves us wondering if these are just the actions of a responsible mother, or if there's something deeper to this level of control that she has. What's really concerning, though, is the fact that it's been made clear that she's more capable than both Hugh and Jimmy combined, but she never fully embraces it. Not only is she seemingly a genius who could likely be out working in a lab instead of being a stay-at-home mom, but she's also basically a servant to her son and husband who don't really seem to appreciate her all too much. All in all, there is an alarming amount of things stacked against Hugh here. First of all, the extremely high level of Judy's competence compared to his obscene incompetence. She's the one who raises Jimmy, she's the one who manages their household, she's the one who keeps everything running like a well-oiled machine. Without her, he would be completely lost, both literally and figuratively. On top of that, there's the fact that she clearly outshines him in intelligence. I mean, she never really acknowledges it, but breaking down all the ways that she's smarter than him just feels like beating a dead horse at this point. This episode in and of itself did that enough for us. Furthermore though, Judy is a self-sufficient woman. When she was on her own in Maternotron Knows Best, or even when they went camping, she seemed to be completely fine. Even, dare I say, thriving. Unlike Hugh, who needs her to balance his dim-witted chaos. On top of all of that though, she pretty much enables his incompetence, going out of her way to never really rely on him for anything important or anything that you might need a competent adult for. It's almost as if she's accepted his uselessness at this point and lets him go play with his ducks while she does both of their jobs. All of these points here lead us to one big tough pill to swallow. Judy doesn't need Hugh anywhere near as much as he needs her, if at all. As a matter of fact, she might be better off without him. Where it gets really interesting though is considering if Judy never actually needed Hugh, then why did she marry him? Sure, a healthy marriage is fully built on love, compatibility, and desire, among many, many other things. Not really a dependency or necessity. However, when we consider that Judy is in a situation where she's the most competent adult in the family, in a relationship with a man who can't accept responsibility for his incompetence, and on top of that, she's got this hidden genius, we can't help but wonder how she ended up in this relationship in the first place and why she stayed. It leads me to consider all of the times that she's been the one to save the day and didn't take credit for it. Could it be that deep down she never really got the chance to be the genius in the spotlight, so she's not used to it? Maybe she's just happy keeping things running and doesn't want that attention. Or maybe she's just too tired to care anymore, accepting that this is just her life and what she does. Maybe she's just tired of always being right and never being listened to. I can't help but wonder if maybe this ties into something that stems from Judy's childhood. What if she's always been a genius, like Jimmy? What if she's had these smarts since she was a little girl, however, growing up in the time period that she did, due to societal stigma, she was expected to grow up to become a homemaker and settle down rather than pursue a career? It could be that at some point in her life, she was put down and made to feel like her only place in life was serving a man, and as a result, she never pursued anything bigger than being a stay-at-home housewife. On top of that, it could be that she didn't have the means growing up to have a lab or to pursue science the way that Jimmy does, and as a result, she wasn't able to ever really explore that side of herself as she was coming of age. Honestly, it could be that Hugh was just there. I mean, it's entirely possible that she saw him as a safe and easy choice in someone to settle down with. Someone who's gentle, won't challenge her, and will allow her to kind of coast through life without any work pressure. Ultimately, it could be that she settled for him. If Judy really is a genius, she may have realized long ago that her intelligence wasn't going to be fully appreciated, and well, instead of fighting it, she leaned into a role that society expected her to play as a woman growing up in the time period that she did. To be fair though, it could simply be that she's a stay-at-home mom by choice, because that's what makes her happy. Maybe that's her calling in life, and as we saw, she's fantastic at it. Ultimately, as far as her genius is concerned, it needs to be said that she is still using it to make a big difference, whether it's in a traditional workplace or not. She's using her smarts to run the best household that she can, and that's a perfectly valid use of her skill set. With all of these pieces in place, however, and looking back at everything in hindsight, an undeniable pattern starts to emerge. In the beginning, we watched Judy just casually let Jimmy ignore her warning. She told him clear as day, in genius terms, that Jimmy could certainly process that altering his shoes the way that he did would end badly for him. However, he blatantly discarded her genius, just like everyone else always has. At first, it seemed like she was just hands-off letting Jimmy learn a lesson, but now it doesn't seem as casual, and I can't help but wonder, was she actually okay with seeing him fail? Looking further into that episode, we brushed past something kind of huge earlier. Judy's reaction to Jimmy getting trampled, or more so, her lack of a reaction. While her husband empathized having been trampled just like his son was, Judy barely seemed to care. I mean, at first it seemed like maybe she was more focused on his hurt feelings over losing repeatedly, but when you consider everything else that we've uncovered, it starts to feel a lot more unsettling. Then, when it came to her going on vacation and Maternotron taking over, was it really about relaxation? Or was it about showing Hugh and Jimmy how valuable she is and teaching them a lesson? If she was able to predict the outcome of an untested experiment on Jimmy's shoes so easily, could she have predicted that Jimmy would invent something along the lines of Maternotron in her absence? Or does she just know deep inside that raising a genius who doesn't listen and compensating for a Neanderthal of a husband is exhausting and she just needed some time away? One big thing I've noticed about Judy is that she tends to be sometimes alarmingly passive about Jimmy getting into dangerous situations. Like when he does something that makes a mess or directly affects her, she gets pretty upset. Meanwhile, when he gets himself into an extremely dangerous situation and gets out of it on his own, she doesn't really seem fazed or like she cares all too much. By all means, she'll even save him sometimes like we saw here, but those times when he saves himself, there never really seems to be any disciplinary action for him doing something that he shouldn't have been doing. Then, when we consider Hugh and everything that we saw in the last episode, her having that tracking device under his skin, was that her just being responsible? Or is she so used to being the only competent adult in the house that she's given up pretending that isn't the case? Her exhaustion makes even more sense now when we consider that she might not just be burnt out with daily life, she's burnt out from a life that she may have never even wanted. And at this point, she's just given up on trying with them. With Hugh, it's plain as day. But with Jimmy, there are deeper layers to it. This isn't your typical parental exhaustion. This is relating to her son in the sense that they're both geniuses. However, his genius is nurtured, which Judy never had. As a result, he gets to explore his genius in ways that she never could. All the meanwhile, she's expected to cook, clean, and take care of both him and his father, neither of whom appreciate what she does or are thankful. Judy has her entire world on her shoulders, and if she never truly needed Hugh or wanted this life, then at this point, she's just potentially going through the motions. This path leads us to one final chilling question. Was Judy Neutron the silent mastermind of the household, subtly guiding the chaos around her while everyone remained oblivious? Or was she an undervalued genius who gave up on something greater a long time ago? What do you guys think? Was Judy orchestrating things behind the scenes the whole time, or did she just kind of stop trying? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love seeing your guys' feedback. Of course, I have to give a massive shout out to my true 90s kids over on Patreon. You guys fill my heart with so much happiness, and I am incredibly appreciative of your generosity and your support. Thank you guys specifically so much for being a part of my YouTube journey. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like and stick around for another deep dive or two. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Peace.